Welcome back to How to Be a Better DM, the official podcast of Monsters.Rent. I'm Justin Lewis.
And I'm Tanner Weyland.
And we are here to help you tell better stories for yourself and your players as you dungeon master sessions of D&D, Dungeons & Dragons. We'd like to give you some quick announcements. We actually have one before the show, and then after the show, if you want to stick around, we have some more announcements then as well. But first, let's talk about this. Tired of being alone? Are you tired of not having any of your players understand you? Are you tired of never truly belonging? Well, you're in luck. All you need to do is join the Guild. The Guild is a unique and exclusive experience that is only open to Dungeon Masters. It is a full community focused on helping ease your DMing burdens. Want to meet other DMs? Join the Guild. Want to discuss your homebrew ideas with people who would appreciate it instead of just telling your cat? Join the Guild. Want to find a place where all your wildest dreams will come true? Join the Guild. Go to monsters.rent/guild and sign up today for free. Wait, that can't be right. Chuck, can you check this again? Is this supposed to be... What? Oh, they're serious? It's free? Oh, okay. All right. Yes, go to monsters.rent/guild and sign up today for free, even though they are crazy for giving this away for free. Common side effects may include burping, sneezing, laughing, breathing, hearing, listening, tasting, farting, critting, sarcasm, and in extreme cases, explosive diarrhea. Awesome. With that out of the way, we can get into today's show.
Welcome to How to Be a Better DM, the official podcast of Monsters.Rent. This is Tanner Weyland, and I'm here with Justin Lewis. Say hi.
Hi.
Hi. Perfect. We're glad to be here with you guys, and today we're going to have a little, just a little question episode. Just a little episode where we're answering one question. How do you convince a non-playing person to play D&D? Justin, let's get your thoughts.
All right. For me, step one. Ask what movies they like to watch, right? Because most people like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Marvel, Harry Potter, or any number of fantasy movie. And once you know, oh, you like Harry Potter? Well, how is Harry Potter any different than Dungeons and Dragons, right? That would be my first tip. Ask what movies they like.
Yeah. One thing that I would throw in there is convince the people around them. Like, if, for example, my wife, she's never played D&D, never wants to. She's firmly in the camp that's like, that's nerdy stuff, and yet she has friends that she thinks are cool, who like D&D, and they heard that, I'm into D&D. They're like, oh my goodness, you should run a D&D campaign or a session for us, right? And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And then, the thought was planted in my mind. I was like, I can get Kirsty to join. These are her work friends. Of course she would play. Why would she not? She tried to play a little bit of hard to get. It's like, oh, I don't know. I just want to watch you guys play. But I was like, I think I can get her. Specifically because she has friends, people that she respects as normal people, not as nerds like me. And that's a good way to convince them. And I think pairing with that, even if she doesn't play, if she sits and sees how an actual game is played, right? Because I got into D&D, frankly, because I started listening to podcasts, live play podcasts. And that I was like, oh, this is really fun. I can do this. This isn't too far of a leap. She's never going to do that. What she could do is get an in-person live play podcast, quote unquote, where I'm playing with her friends, if I'm unable to convince her, of course. And that would totally open up the way for like, hey, if they like it enough and they want to do it again, she'd probably be willing to do the next time, right?
Absolutely. In fact, my wife's aunt still sort of thinks D&D is related to devils and demons, right?
The satanic panic kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not so much that she actively thinks that. She just had a bad experience, essentially. But her daughter, right, is living with my wife's parents, and because of that, her daughter, my wife's cousin, is not allowed to play D&D, right? But she's come over while we're having our sessions and watched us play, and we ask her and we say like, hey, do you think there's anything wrong with this? And she's like, no, it kind of sounds a little boring. Which, I mean, that's her opinion, but exactly what Tanner said, expose them a little bit to D&D, right? Have them watch the D&D movie. And everyone knows the D&D movie was funny because you have, lots of kind of new up-and-coming actors as well as some pretty old and storied actors, who Hugh Grant has been in countless movies. But you have them watch the D&D movie, they're going to laugh, they're going to see things that are pretty cool, and they're going to ask questions like, wait a second, is Thembershad, that giant fat dragon, is he like a real character? And the answer is yes. He actually features in The Lost Mines of Phandelver, which is in fact basically like the first D&D anything that most people come in contact with. Would you like to play? Right? That's an easy segue.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And, above all, just I think if you bring a good positivity to D&D when you talk about it, talk about how fun it was. Talk about, things that you think that they would really find funny or interesting. If you're a DM, which, I mean, you're listening to this podcast, so hopefully you're trying to be, then just be like, hey, I was really stumped with this thing, but then I came up with this cool solution, and they really enjoyed it. Just be super positive. Even if they think you're so nerdy and that it's not interesting to them, they're not going to be intimidated by it, right? Yeah. And that kind of opens up a pathway for them to be open in other ways, right?
Yeah. And along those lines, don't push too hard, because our natural inclination as human beings is when someone tells us, you need to do this. Our natural inclination is to say, no, I don't. And I'm not going to because you told me to, right? So in trying to get them to play, make simple invitations. Say, it means a lot to me, and I enjoy doing it with my friends. In fact, it keeps my relationships with certain friends strong. Sometimes you don't have the ability to see them, but everyone can schedule something and make it happen. But anyways, don't push too hard.
Yeah, and I think something that I would just throw in as kind of a gateway drug to tabletop, role-playing games, is, there are easy tabletop role-playing games, and then there are also board games that include a little bit of role-playing, right? I would say that that certain games, like based off of Mafia, like the One Night Werewolf game, yep. Like to some extent that's a lot of like playing a role. And then there's other games where you're like working with someone to do, like, it's kind of co-op, right? Like there's Pandemic. There's there's this firefighter board game. I'm blanking on the name. But anyway, there are these games where it's like, hey, you're embodying a role, you're role playing, and you're working together with some people. Those are great gateways to doing something more serious. And then if you're trying to do a gateway role-playing game, there's a lot of options, right? Like there's some games that, like there's one game called Dread. It's kind of horror based, so I don't know if you do it with everyone who you're trying to get into D&D, but the whole idea is that you're playing Jenga. It's a role-playing game based around Jenga. And each time, like you can find pre-written scenarios, but every time that a player wants to do something, they pull a block, put it on top, and then they do the thing that they said their character would do, right? Mm-hmm. But the moment that tower falls down, oh my goodness, that person's dead, and the DM, who can be you in this case, kind of takes over that character, and they die or transform or who knows what, right? Something horror related. That's a very simple game that doesn't require a lot of rules, and it can be a nice segue,
Yeah. Another game is Betrayal at Hill House. That one.
Oh, exactly.
It's basically an RPG in board game format. Kind of, going the opposite way. Rather than using games, if you know this person to be one who is very much into personal development, challenge them. and say, have you ever wanted to try and see how quick you are at thinking, using your wits, being creative? How creative are you at problem solving? How good are you at improvising? And how good are your performance and presentation skills? Well, Dungeons and Dragons is the best kind of mix of all of those because it's fun and it does challenge you to kind of think on your feet and improvise, take things as they come, and try and craft new solutions that are unique and sometimes absurd.
Yeah. And kind of as a last point from me, I think that what you said about not pushing is important. Now, if you did want to do kind of a last hurrah, if you will, I think that you could try and ask them to do a favor for you, to be like, hey, I wrote this thing. I really think it'd be fun. And I have a couple of friends, or mutual friends who want to play it, but we really could use another player. Would you be willing to sit in just one time? Right. Or you could even be more direct and be like, hey, I've always loved the idea of playing with you, but I never thought that you'd be into it. Even though I'm sure you'd be great. Would you try it once for me? And if they're like hard no, don't push it too much. But I think a lot of people, if you're that direct and that honest about it, like, hey, I would really like to try it, because if you did like it, it'd be really fun. Then that would be, I think some people would be willing to try that. I think that would be the right approach for certain, individuals. And if you're able to do that, then you try it. And if they don't like it, they don't like it. You tried your best. You can move on. You can do it knowing that you put your best foot forward and that they've actually tried it, and you can be grateful and thank them for that. And it can be a memory, to look back on.
Absolutely. The last thing I'd say is, even though you shouldn't push too hard, you shouldn't give up. I have a friend who I've been inviting to play D&D with me for the last 3 years plus. And I feel like I can feel him slowly slipping, right? Eventually I'll get him to say yes. But sometimes people just aren't in the right space. You might ask them one day and they'll say yes. So don't give up.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, we invite you to go out there, give it another try with your friend, with your family member, your significant other, to invite them into the rich world of D&D. And even if it doesn't work now, keep try in different ways, because we know that it's going to be a great experience for you. And until next time, let's roll initiative.
Thank you for listening to today's show. We really appreciate your support and your patronage. We have a few more announcements to go over. First,
did you ever fall in love with the library as a kid? It was a place where you could experience 1,000 stories without having to buy 1,000 books. That is what Monsters.Rent can do for your D&D campaign. You can rent and swap out as many quality miniature monsters and creatures for your D&D party as you could ever want, without having to buy them. You can rescue villagers from a kobold camp, or lead your party through the fighting forest, or many more adventures. We're coming out with new bundles all the time. Just sign up for our subscription to get access to your own personal library of minis. Go to Monsters.Rent to find out more. That's the website. Monsters.Rent. Get your library pass to a world of minis today.
we also wanted to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Stardust and Dragons. I'm going to let one of the cast of Stardust and Dragons, Christian Hatcher, and his crew tell you a little bit more about it.
This August, a new adventure podcast is coming to a platform near you, filled with action.
You one of the two of them. We can't keep taking hits like that.
Drama.
Everything that she's been doing, everything she's going to do, finally sets in.
And Stardust.
Help! Help! Someone, please!
Find out more about this epic odyssey at stardustanddragons.com, where adventure awaits in the stars.
That's all the announcements we have today. Again, thank you so much for everything you do for us. You make this show possible. Like we said before, we'll be back next week with another great episode, and until then, let's go ahead and roll initiative.